Welcome back to Business Morning. On Tuesday, the Nigerian Stock Exchange launched the Alternative Securities Market, the ASM board, now specifically designed for emerging businesses or small and medium enterprises, giving them the chance to access the capital market. Well, here to talk about that with me is the Executive Director of Business Development at the NSE, Mr. Haruna Jalo-Waziri. Thank you so much, Haruna, for being here.
Thank you for having me, Esther.
How excited is the NSE about this? I know we've been talking about it. There's been a momentum building up towards it, and then, finally it was launched on Tuesday. How excited is the NSE about that?
We are very, very excited because this journey took us 2 years to get to launch the ASM board. Also looking at the perspective of the fact that Nigeria is growing at 7% GDP, and the core essence of that growth is coming from certain areas that are not represented in the stock exchange. And we think that by rebranding and reclassifying this particular board, we're actually creating an enabling environment for companies to access capital without the stringent requirements of the main board in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Now,
if I'm an SME owner watching you right now, how excited should I be? I mean, if we put it in context, it also, I know the NSE also says that it's for companies with the potential for, good growth as well. We have over 17 million SMEs in the country.
Excellent. I mean, the issue is about whether this market has seen a recovery. We're beginning to see that. The first two POs were very successful in January and February. One was Owando, which raised the rights issue, as well as the REIT that has just been concluded by UAC Properties. Now, these are indications of the fact that the market is beginning to recover in terms of POs. Now, what it means is there's fresh money coming into the market. Investors are looking for companies that have growth potentials, that have strong fundamentals, that have what I call a good business plan, and we are beginning to see all of that tie into it. And the ASM board will create an environment for small and mid-cap companies to access cheap capital through the capital market without the stringent requirements that are obvious in the main board.
Now, how many of them do we have on a board? Do you have on a board right now?
Today we have 11 in the market, and we've just launched the ASM index, as you're aware, on Tuesday, which will track the performances of this company. And if you go to our website or any daily report that you see, you start seeing that the performances of these companies as it is. As for listings, we're looking towards, we have a pipeline in place, and we're excited about what we have on that pipeline.
Now, I'm a bit, let me not use the word concerned, curious about, how the market will receive it, because when we say accessing the capital market for, funds, we're talking about going to the market to get money, perhaps to expand or, grow the business. How do you think investors will feel about that? I mean, many of them are small companies. Yes, they have potential for growth, but we know, looking back in history, the fact that, coming to the market to raise money, that might be a little bit of a challenge. We haven't had, vast IPO or a robust IPO season, as it were. So, in terms of how investors will receive the market?
I think, first of all, if I may separate the two questions, or rather,
okay.
Segregate the two questions. One is that the ASM board, does it have potential for companies to come and raise money? Yes, we do. The core values or the core fundamentals that we put in place to assist those companies to be viable are that we've appointed what they call designated advisors. Those DAs are supposed to handhold those companies in ensuring that they meet the requirements of both the Nigerian Stock Exchange and investor appetite. So they guide them towards doing the right things in terms of putting the right structures in place to be able to, qualify for what I call investor capacity investments. The second thing is about the IPO market that we're currently seeing. Like I said at my last visit here, we have a huge pipeline. We're likely to see quite a bit of it coming, mostly going to likely be from book running rather than the typical public offer and listed by introduction. There is a lot of, what I call new capital directed towards Nigerian Stock Exchange in terms of, investments. The thing they're waiting for is who is going to give us the deal of the year and who's going to give us the best deal of the month. And then tendency is that you see people begin to come and invest in those companies.
In terms of who will give you the best deal of the year or the month, what do you have in mind? Would the SMEs be the ones to do that?
Yeah, I think growth companies are where you should go now. I mean, Europe is flat in terms of growth. Where are the growth coming in? It's coming from companies like the small and mid-cap companies in Nigeria with a 7% growth, with the opening of the PIB itself being finalized hopefully at some point in time. You're going to see a lot of companies within that particular industry beginning to come and access the market because they have the capacity to do it, and we believe that that's where the first few POs are likely to come from.
Have you been approached by, or are you in any collaborative effort with SMEs and the associations of the small and medium enterprises? Have they come to you? I imagine they must be very interested in this.
In fact, thank you for asking that question. I actually missed it out. What it is that we've done with SMEs from last week is that we've set up a technical committee to assist small and mid-sized companies to access the capital market through the Nigerian Stock Exchange with an ASM board. Now, typical of what the issues are with ASMs are, or rather with small companies are, that, the chief executive is the chief finance officer, is chief marketing officer, he's also the head of HR. Part of what we want to do with ASM is that see the possibility of how to assist these companies to restructure, first of all, and there's a cost of restructuring. How do we get to get them to, get to restructure at a lower cost, or by providing some kind of funding for them to actually be able to get to that level. Now, on the stock exchange has value-added services, which includes institutional services. We're partnering with a company called NextZone to be able to, give those companies that are listed on the exchange that capacity to be able to have that corporate governance and the rest of it.
Will they be able to afford this consultant, this advice as it were? Because I know many of them, staff strength of just 5, we don't know, the turnover very, negligible as it were.
Which is why we have that technical committee. That technical committee is going to look at holistically what are the things that are required to ensure that these companies are supported by the SMEs itself and other stakeholders to ensure that they get to the listing point, or rather they qualify to that listing point, and also be attractive to investors as well.
Now, I understand that right now you have 14 designated advisors. Have they hit the ground running? Are they working already? Are they talking to these companies already?
Absolutely. What has happened over time is that, within the period in which we appointed DAs and when they started working, in fact, quite a few of them that had been appointed actually have been working with certain small-sized companies to come and list. 1 or 2 have already been listed, I think a couple of 2 years ago. Now, the thing about it is that we have said all members of that board will have a DA, so all 11 will now have to appoint their own DAs. Second is that small companies that want to come to the exchange will also have to appoint a DA by themselves. So the DAs are actually talking to almost all the companies that we are talking to in terms of coming to list, and outside what we even have, they're actually talking to others. And now that we have launched this particular board, we are trying to ensure that people are aware that this is the first point of call. The DAs are, and by the way, the DAs are not going to charge any companies that are coming within the next 12 months. So it's more
from now
for the next 12 months. Yes.
Is that like a free another value added?
It's part of the value added service.
Okay.
It's also part of the way to encourage companies to quickly come and participate in this particular market.
Now, I understand that. Well, let me confirm from you. Eventually, will every company, small scale company, need or require to have an advisor? Yes,
that's part of the rules that we're setting right now. That because you see, the thing about designated advisors, they are hand-holding these companies to meet up their post-listing requirements as well as pre-listing requirements. So when you come to the board, part of the things that happened over time why the SSM didn't really work was that these companies were not compliant because there were no institutional services.
They didn't know what to do.
Exactly.
Basically.
So now we're saying, look, for you to do it, you have to have a DA. DA will guide you as to what your pre- and post-listing requirements are and ensure that you have that requirement. And I think probably that's the way we've structured it to make it look like.
Well, I don't know how many will come or how fast they will come. Like I said, we have over 17 million of them. We don't know how many of them are actually quite viable in terms of future prospects for growth. But does the ASM board have the capacity to absorb? You talked about the fact that there's a lot of personal relationship involved here. If they're going to be handheld, does the ASM board have the capacity to absorb as many as will come if they're all going to be required to have DAs?
Like I said, Nigeria is growing at 7% GDP. Tendency is that there is enough capital sitting on the side waiting for what I call good growth companies. Once you have a business story, you have a good story to tell, and you have put those institutional capacities within your company, why wouldn't people support you? And then we're looking at the market is beginning to recover from where we were 2 years ago to where it is right now, and tendency is that all of the indicators show that there is a lot of capacity that is waiting to be unlocked within the capital market, and the ASM board is a good platform for small to mid-sized companies to access that particular capital that's waiting. But again, you have to have a good story. You have to have a business plan that makes sense. You have to have some kind of capacity within the company itself for investors to actually be able to.
No, you said okay, capacity, good story. Let's talk hypothetically speaking. An SME person, he's in the office now, or shop or something, and wondering, okay, he's saying, I have to have the capacity, I have to have a good story. Can you break that down? Where do I start? Okay, what business, whatever business it is,
Okay, whatever business it is, you must have a product, whether it's services or manufacturing or whatever. That product has to be something that the market wants. You have to have your own share of the market. Which area of the market do you operate in? That's what part of number one that you need to do. Secondly is that you have to organize your company in such a way that people can actually believe, or rather have a confidence in what you're doing, which is all of your accounting is done properly. You have a good organogram. You have you have good corporate governance. Because when people are investing in those companies, they are looking to put their money with you, trust it with you, and then step back and wait for you to make more money for them. Three things must be in place. One, the business plan. Where are you going to? How much money are you likely to make? Two, when you make that money, what structure do you have to protect it? Three, corporate governance. What you tell me, is it what I believe in? What structures do you have in place to make sure that there is continuity in that particular market? Those are the 3 or 4 things that are probably necessary on an ASM basis or any type of company at all for people to invest in.
Now, do we know how many of these companies fall into this particular category? I don't know, in your talks with Smith, and if they do, because we've seen available statistics, we just knew that there are over 17 million of them. We don't know how many of them in terms of growth potential and, prospects.
When the ASM was launched, the MD CEO of Access Bank says, I think Access Bank has something close to 450,000 small to medium-sized companies that they service. That's one bank. Imagine if all of the other banks have something similar. So the potentials are incredibly huge. Now, 2 things will determine whether or not you want to access the market. One, your willingness to expose your company to scrutiny, to allow yourself to put certain structures in place. That is one of the reasons why, that's one of the things that you require to come to the market. How many of them have that intention? We don't know. But we know that the market is huge, the potentials are huge, and that's why we decided to relaunch this particular board.
Now, in terms of what you're hoping, in terms of growth potential, how the ASM board will grow, going forward, perhaps in the next 2-3 quarters, or perhaps in the next 2-3 years, what are your expectations? Do you have targets that you hope that the ASM board will meet? We
strongly feel that, that's one area that we're going to see the fastest listings as possible in terms of, what the intention is over the next 2-3 years. Because, in economies like Nigeria, where we rely on natural resources, we have to use the income from that natural resources to develop our the industrial sector, and typically is driven by small and medium cap. This is where the economy is going to target to grow, because that's where we have the most. And don't forget that Nigerians are very entrepreneurial. They are significantly, a number of entrepreneurs with fantastic ideas who want to actually see that the companies grow. And we think that those are the ones that will really be interested in this ASM board, and we're likely to see quite a bit of them. Okay, what's your thoughts for us, Haruna? We need to take a break at this point. We'll come back and talk more about this. I've been talking to Haruna Jalo-Waziri, Executive Director, Business Development at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We're talking about details of the recently launched alternative securities market for small and medium enterprises. We'll be right back. Okay, now, Haruna, during the break, we're talking about the fact that, yes, there are 11 of them, and I was asking, have you been approached by any in the last, since before the launch and after the launch? When we started sensitizing the markets about the launch of the ASM, we started seeing interest by small, mid-sized companies talking and asking what are the requirements for us to come and list. Now, that particular interest quadrupled immediately we launched the ASM board, because what we did was that we tried to reach out to the stakeholders within the context of the small and medium-sized companies, and we got quite a bit of feedback. And then right now we are getting more inquiries about, can we have the listing requirements for this ASM? What are requirements what are the things we need to do to ensure that we get listed? So what we are trying to do now from the NSE perspective is begin to do a roadshow to those small companies, or gather them in a room and begin to explain to them what it is that they require to do to get to to access capital in the stock market. And it's been quite impressive and encouraging. Another thing is that another group that we're talking to significantly are, you remember the Tony Elumelu Foundation actually did I think 50 growth companies or so. We're talking to all of those companies, and they typically would have, for them to be selected as top 50 growth companies, then there must be certain things they're already doing that is right. So we think those are the first set of people that we should be engaging go forward, and we are engaging them as we speak. Now, first port of call for these companies, when they come, should it be directly to the
NSE? Is it the Business Development Office or Department? Where should they come to?
Yes, the typical interface from the NSE perspective is actually the Business Development Division. We have a department called Listing, Sales and Retention. Their main function is actually to go out there and try and get companies to come and list in the exchange, as well as be account officers for the companies that are currently listed. You know, prior to now, the exchange used to build a moat around it, like Oscar used to say, and then you had to come and explain why you have to join the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Today, we don't do that. We actually go out there and talk to people and say we encourage you to come and list on the exchange. And it's very simple. 17%, our market cap to GDP, to what's it called, GDP, 17%. Of reflective of the market, of the economy rather. So there's a huge gap, or rather there's a huge possibility for the growth in that particular in terms of what's it called, Nigerian Stock Exchange listings. There's a huge opportunities there.
Now, so are we going to see a major significant shift? Because we talk about SMEs, even the viable ones with excellent business plans and perhaps inadequate collateral as well. Instead of going and camping with the banks begging for credit, they can actually come to the market and have a better and easier time as well.
When companies access capital, and capital can be in two forms. It can be equity, it can be fixed income. So we're not just dealing with equity. You can actually raise long-term funding in the exchange. But then what it also does to you, it improves the quality of your balance sheet, whether it is Tier 1 capital or Tier 2. So Tier 1 can be equity, which is lasting. Tier 2 can be long-dated bonds or...
Or if they can actually raise...
Yeah, they can.
And SME can raise a bond?
Absolutely. Why not? The SM board is for both equity, fixed income, and also ETFs, because we have launched the index. What you can do is you can build products around, the index that has been. You can have. There's no reason why we can't have an alternative, an SM ETF. We're waiting for those issuances and those advisors to begin to structure those particular products. Yes, you can do it. You can have a bond index on the SM, and you can still put ETFs there. So yes, you can raise all sorts of capital.
Is that part of what you would also be telling them as you go out? Obviously, you say you're not sitting in your offices, you will go out to them.
Absolutely. We'll go out to them and explain to them the options that they have and what can fit best for their businesses. Yes.
Interesting. Now,